Today we're going to break down how to beat a tough opponent. This was a very tough game playing as black. Okay. Just going to defend with e6. The thinking is that the f7 square cannot be attacked by the bishop and stuff or overloaded. I'm going to use the knight here, expecting that move. Okay.
Check.
Went for the check early on. I'm trying to create some tempo here. Obviously getting boxed. White's getting aggressive. Decide to open it up with a pawn, which kind of presents some problems in that the queen is in trouble. We still have a spot for the queen. White wants to trade knights here. I'm not going to go for it. If they take it, then we'll figure it out then. Trying to get rid of this pawn right here. White takes, we retake. Okay.
Check.
Now we've got to create some tempo. That's why we go for the check with the queen. Now we're going to try to go after that d pawn. And we're trying to get our pieces out. The pieces are no good if they're sitting in the back. We got to get them out here. So, okay. Queen is in trouble here. A number of options. I'm going to take the good one, and that is g6. Queen is in trouble again. After thinking over for a while, I'm thinking maybe the queen shouldn't be on that side of the board. Maybe we need to reposition it where we can attack. So I'm thinking like b6. That's where we went, with the idea of pushing the pawn. Maybe bringing in the dark squared bishop. Okay, we go ahead and push the pawn there. Bringing the knight forward, my thinking was if white brings the bishop, we can take the h2 pawn check. Instead, they decide to push the pawn here. I go ahead with the plan of taking with the knight, as it's guarded by the queen.
Check.
This was a tough spot here. The standard thinking is to take, but that opens the door for
check.
Check. And then white has a lot of pieces. It can pretty much finish off the game right here.
Check.
So instead of taking, decided to play king to d8. A tight spot, but the thing we have going for it is white actually blocks its own pieces. Oh, it could push the e pawn, but we have pawns that can recapture, and then we will develop pieces, so it's probably not going to do that there. Finally brings the bishop forward. Okay, let's check the queen. And here's where it gets tricky. Decide to bring the knight and block the queen here. Okay, white brings in its rook. We're going to take the e5 pawn now. Now notice the rook is open on a1. Decide not to take that with the queen. Instead, we need to be able to go on the attack. We cannot do it with the queen alone. We need another piece involved. So we're going to play rook to h7 with the idea of removing that f7 pawn.
Check.
We're in check, but that's okay. We got a pawn to block. Now, white wants to trade queens. We don't want to do that. One way we can avoid that is by taking the f7 pawn, and more importantly,
check.
Putting the king in check. This was a tricky decision here. I was debating between taking here, checking, but I can't finish it off with mate there. So I decided instead to go with taking the rook check.
Check.
To which white responded by blocking with the rook. The problem is this bishop on e3, or black's dark square bishop. So what do you do next? You set up with the queen right there. And remember, our rook is actually exposed, so white takes it there. Now, we're going to take this bishop and move it to c5. And part of the reason we're doing that is because if we don't, let's say, you know, we go here, now
check,
white can do that. So that we don't want that situation there. So we're going to block with the bishop there. White decided to capture with its bishop. Now we can retake with the pawn. And then white decides to block with the queen there. And this is a huge opportunity in this spot right here. One of the things you want to try to do is, you know, you don't want to trade pieces if you can avoid it. So you got to think at another level in this spot right here. And the best move is going to be to put the king in check. And there's really only one way to do that. So that's queen to d4.
check,
And what that does is that forces either the queen to block in a bad spot, which is not what I want to do. You know, it's pretty exposed there. So instead,
check,
white decides to move its king out of the way. And that opens the door where we can trade queen for rook, which is a good trade. And we kind of need material here. And then we get lucky at this point. White decides to resign.